And just that,
So I'm also fighting all of a sudden.
yeah, you know,
She's off Jabber, so I think she's on her way.
last
I'll start housekeeping.
one day, one morning, my nose was just running, couldn't get the stop. It's the craziest thing. Just
Yes, I'm right.
And I'm gonna print
Stop the-
that for you. I haven't.
like you
I forgot.
30 seconds sneezing store, but just it's like whatever that was irritating my nose. What's that? Yeah.
I'm leaving, but you sit there. You're boss lady.
There you go.
Participating in today's meeting for the South Coast Air Quality Management District. If attending in person, please do not connect to Zoom or teleconference while in the room. To prevent disruptions, please silence all devices. All participants on Zoom, except for board members and South Coast AQMD staff, will be placed on mute. You will not be able to mute or unmute your line manually. After each item, public comment will be taken. If you are participating in person and wish to comment, please use the iPads which are located in the lobby if the meeting is in the auditorium. For meetings in other locations, please complete a blue speaker card and provide the card to a South Coast AQMD employee. Information on how to participate in the meeting in Spanish using a telephone will be provided at the end of these housekeeping remarks. Speakers may be limited to a total of 3 minutes or less for all items on the agenda. The amount of time to comment may be shortened to ensure all speakers can be heard. A countdown timer will be displayed on the screen for each public comment. If interpretation is needed, more time will be allotted. For questions or issues related to making public comment, please call the public advisor at 909-396-3247. That's 909-396-3247. In terms of decorum, if this meeting is taking place in the auditorium, no food or beverages are allowed in the auditorium. In accordance with state and local public health department guidelines, people may choose to wear a mask based on personal preference while in South Coast AQMD facilities. Please adhere to the speaker time limit and treat others with courtesy, civility, and respect. Failure to do so can result in your mic being muted or you being removed from the meeting. Lastly, be aware that this meeting is being recorded. By participating, you agree to authorize recording of audio and visual content presented during the live event and consent to subsequent use of the recording in the public domain by South Coast AQMD.
Good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody. Happy 2024. Can't believe we're at that year already. And there's a lot of stuff that's going to be happening this year, but let's get started on our meeting. So we'll start on agenda item number 1, which is to review the upcoming board agenda. As always, we'll start off with our presentation. So if you flip to page 8, the first item we have is a staff presentation on permitting enhancement program status update. Jason Asfel.
Good morning, everyone. We will be coming back. This will be our 6-month update for the PEP program. Most of our items are longer term items, 12 months, 24 months. But we will be giving a status report on where we're at with staffing. It is looking good. We have some vacancy right now, but we're in training mode now. So we'll also be reporting where we are under our permit processing goals. And then also status of some of the tools we're developing. We will be addressing some of the recent concerns that were brought up in the management committee of the waste management team specifically, and actions we've taken and are still going to take to address those concerns. Questions?
I have a quick question. I know that you brought back a few people that some of the retired to come back. I like 4 or 5. Or are you anticipating doing any more, or are they with that the people coming back? Is that obviously going to increase the amount of flow that you're able to get through some of these permit backlog?
So we do have retirees. By Subsera requirements, they are a max of 50% of the time. And this is as they're available, but they have been focused on our most backlog team, so it has been helpful. Sarah did express concerns about extending it. We just went back to extend it for the rest of the fiscal year. As we fill positions, Sarah did express concerns on continuing to use that resources, them as resources, but what we are exploring now is utilizing them as contractors. So we're going to be in touch with them to see if they'd be interested in that opportunity to continue their services.
I have a question. Oh,
No, that's one quick question. Are you expecting, because I know March is typically a popular month when people retire, are you expecting to lose a few folks now? Or are you anticipating trying to incentivize them to stay on maybe for a little bit longer and get another year of service in? Or is there any kind of discussion in that regard?
So we do track staff status fairly closely on our own. We're limited as far as asking some of that information. This year, we do not anticipate the massive level of retirements that we had in 2022. It'll be much less. We are looking ahead for the next 2 years after that and starting to plan now and getting experience behind those teams that may be impacted. So it's something we're watching very closely. And then we actually had somebody rescind their retirement for a year. Excuse me, but we actually were gearing up for succession planning for that position, but we retracted that when they said they were going to stay.
Okay, good. Thank you.
are we not planning to do any recruitment in the colleges in the area for new people?
So we did a lot of recruitments last year. We hired a lot from those universities we went to. I just got contacted by Kent State Long Beach last week, and we're ready to meet. We actually got a lot of engineers from there. Recruitment, so we're going to keep up that. And then we also stay in contact with Cal Poly Pomona, and we look at other schools through their career fairs, because what we're going to be doing, we have an open recruitment for engineers again right now to try and fill our remaining 4 spots. But then we're going to be going into, after this, the continual recruitment. So HR is currently working.
Especially a lot of engineering folks, and they could slide into enforcement for a while before they could matriculate to become an engineer. So that's something to think about.
Jason, as a follow-up to the question that Mark was asking, apart from the 50% cap that SV Sarah puts on retirees working, and that obviously impacts the 8 people you've got now. I think part of Mark's question, or at least what I thought I heard, was, is there any plan to hire more than 8 people? Because you could get them, so they won't hit the cap.
So
to help with the backlog.
We've reached out to multiple retirees over the year. Part of Subsera's limitations to this option is, do we have vacancies that we're trying to fulfill? And we're getting to that point that retirees will then take over those responsibilities. We're at the point now where our vacancy rate is less than 10 and our engineer vacancy rate is around 5 or 6. So it's becoming difficult to make that argument, but
Okay, so there's a cap on numbers as well as the 50%. Okay.
There's other opportunities to engage the 50%.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, as a follow-up, I just wanted to say, I'm glad to hear that you guys are gearing up for succession planning. And I know when people retire, you lose that institutional knowledge. Are you guys making sure that we're able to hire from within and fill those vacancies from people from within? Are they able to move up?
Yeah, our recruitments are available to inspectors, and we often recruit and promote a lot of inspectors who happen to be engineers. And then through the engineer classes, that typically happens from within the promotional process. We did hit a little bit of a challenge because we had so many new people that were supervisor class. We ran out of eligible candidates that met the classification internally, so we went externally. A little bit different, but we're still focusing on the internal process.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this item? All right, if you flip the page to page number 9, we'll go start with item 28. This is for proposed amended rule 461.1. Mr. Kraus.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. This is what we would call our surgical amendment to this rule. 461.1 is a rule that regulates our mobile fueling. Mobile fuelers are basically, trucks that have a fuel tank on it that carries around. And they dispense gasoline in motor vehicles, equipment, and even containers. So this rule's focused on that. When we developed the rule, we inadvertently didn't recognize that the definition of gasoline actually was broad enough to actually include aviation fuel, which wasn't really the original intent. So we're basically going to amend the rule to clarify, that intent. Something that was raised at the stationary source meeting from some of the members was about ensuring that, the question of whether aviation fuel is actually being regulated or the aviation gas, mobile fuels are being regulated, and they are under our permitting program. So we will be highlighting that at the board meeting as well, to kind of answer, wrap that up and answer that question. Just so you know, for your edification, that it goes through the permitting process, it'll be reviewed for new source review, so applicability and subjectivity potentially to match, both modeling offsets as well as an evaluation of criteria pollutants as well as toxic air contaminants.
Michael, did I hear you correctly say the stationary source, but we're talking about mobile fueling? Did I miss something?
It did go to stationary.
Okay.
So isn't general aviation gas the only one that has lead in it? Wasn't there something going on with lead in general aviation gas?
Again, if whatever the constituent part, they do get evaluated in the process.
But the thing about lead is that we're
Yeah.
95% control of the federal standards. Have a lead problem.
I think I heard that topic come up recently.
Okay, any other questions for Mike? All right, great. I'm actually going to take an item out of order as Ron has to leave early. So if you could flip to page 6, item number 10, Ron.
Good morning. So last November, the board approved movements of an RFQ to pre-qualify vendors for providing computer network, printer, hardware, and software. We identified 7 vendors capable of providing these products. And this is a standard action to approve these 7 vendors for a 2-year period. Funds are in our budget and have the answer.
Questions for Ron? All right, great. All right, if we flip back to page 9, thanks for allowing us to take that out of order. We'll do item number 29 for the proposed amendments to back guidelines. Mike?
Sarah?
Yes.
Sarah, it's Debbie. I was just wondering, because it's hard to see who's there. Is there a way to do a quick roll call of board assistants so that we who are calling in remotely know who's in attendance?
And if people could just say their name when they start speaking, that would be helpful.
Okay, yeah.
Or they just go around?
Can we just go around the room real quick?
Bill Glazier, Caccioti.
Ben Wong with Michael Caccioti.
Bill Kelly with Michael Caccioti.
Andy Silva with Mayor Locke Austin.
Marisela Santana with Mayor Jose Luis Solache.
Hi, everyone. Amy Wong with Veronica Padilla Campos.
Ignacian with Padilla Campos.
Ron Ketchum, Mayor.
Okay, great.
And Mark Taylor with Councilmember Carlos Rodriguez.
And Debbie Mendelson with Mayor McCallum.
And Peter Rogers and Michael Miller with County Supervisor Kurt Hagman.
Thank you.
Lorraine just joined us.
And Lorraine Lundquist with Supervisor Holly Mitchell.
Sarah, did Ron need to do number 18 as well, since that looked like it was his agenda item?
He just left the building, so
Apparently not.
apparently not.
Okay.
All right, let's go to item number 29 and start. Jason Aspel, could you give us a description?
All right, this is a regular updates to the back guidelines as we go. BACT, Best Available Control Technology, is part of our new source review program. So as we go through permitting, when the facility or permit unit establish a new clean air standard, then we look to list it as an example in our BACT guidelines. So we have several listings. Most of them are for major sources, which is our Title V facilities. But we bring these to the board for approval and additions to our VACT guidelines.
Questions for Jason?
I see Rita here, so I don't know what questions to ask.
Hearing none, let's flip to the beginning of the agenda. So we'll start on page 3. We are setting a public hearing on considering adoption of amendments to a draft state implementation plan provision. This is an item for the Coachella Valley. This is regarding the 2008 ozone standard. As part of the SIP, we're required to submit contingency measure plans. These are measures that are triggered or that need to be in place in case we fail to meet a standard by the time set in the Clean Air Act or fail to meet a major milestone. So we're required to submit this. There's a consent decree deadline or a legal deadline by which we have to submit it. It's the end of April. And so this is the package that we plan on sending to EPA. This measure is on Rule 463. It's just having an additional inspection associated with large tanks, storage tanks for organic liquids. Any questions on that?
Mark Taylor, Sarah, now this wasn't brought up when we did the SIP update. So it was just like brand new because there was no action at that. So I know you didn't mention this specific.
We actually did cover this at a very, very high level. So
Okay.
yes, that was part of the SIP update.
Okay, I don't remember hearing that you were going to bring this forward this quickly. So that's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
This basically Coachella Valley follows South Coast Basin. As long as we clean up, they'll be okay. And
Yeah, the South, Coachella Valley is in non-attainment because of all the emissions that are coming from South Coast. So it's both the ozone that we generate in South Coast as well as the precursor emissions. So ultimately they will glide into attainment because of the plans that we put in place, and they'll also attain earlier.
So one of the issues about Coachella is that it's all transport, basically. I mean, but they have facilities there that unfortunately have to do things that seems like they're saying we're trying to beat the Coachella, which has nothing to do with Coachella being on. It doesn't seem right that a power plant there that maybe a power plant, but it's not affecting the Coachella Valley. Would that be true?
Well, again, there's very few major sources in the Coachella Valley, or pretty much all of the emissions are coming from South Coast. But the way the Clean Air Act works is you still have to have requirements that attach to those areas that fail to meet standards. Okay. Not seeing any other questions. Let's flip to page 4. We have item number 3 on our local government small business advisory group appointments. Derek.
Sure, this is to appoint 2 additional members to LGSBA, the mayor pro tem from City of Brea and also city council member from Fountain Valley. Any questions?
Okay, seeing none, we move on to item 4, Jason Lowe.
Hi, good morning, Jason Lowe, Deputy for Monitoring Analysis. This is a routine item whereby we're expecting to receive $800,000 for the PAM program. We've already received $180,000 for the PIM 2.5 program from the US EPA. This item is basically to recognize these funds, appropriate them into the Monitoring Analysis Division budget, issue solicitations and purchase equipment for this item. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Item number 5, actually the next 4 items are Aaron's. So Aaron, take it away.
Yes, the first item is to enter into an MOU with the City of Irvine. The City of Irvine is going through a process to ban use of nitrogen lawn and garden equipment, both the residential side and the commercial side. So they have obtained a federal grant. They would like to work with us through our current programs, the commercial and the residential program. We're going to identify the project. They're simply going to cut the check for projects that fit in the City of Irvine, and they're going to help with Brandon through that process. So I'll pause there with any questions. Okay, see no questions. Next item is the Moyer Awards. So last year we opened Moyer up for a longer period than we usually do. It was from December 2022 until May 2023. We received over $400 million in applications for the Moyer announcement. Staff spent a lot of time going through all those applications, looking at cost effectiveness. and seeing what's qualified. We found over 300 million of those applications was qualified projects. So there's an award amount listed there of over 200 million, close to $200 million. That includes the year 25 Moyer funds. We're taking half of this year's Moyer funds and put it towards the projects, and also putting some of the community air protection funds towards these projects. And in these award, over 61% of these funds are for zero emission projects. And so I'll pause there with any questions on the Moyer.
Yeah, I have a question and a suggestion. I see the projects that are in environmental justice areas. It says about 75% of them are in those areas. And that's fine, and I'm sure we are always meeting those requirements. It would be nice that when you say 75%, I'm assuming it's 75% of the dollar amount that of projects that are in those areas. It would be nice to know also that how much NOx and PM emissions are attributed to those areas, especially with all those infrastructure projects. The emission reductions are not always related straight, $1 to $1. So that would be nice to know. And also, when you look at AB 617 and Moyer, we always used to write a paragraph about how the methodology was, like it was with the first areas that are have highest poverty, and then in combination with the highest areas with NOx and PM. So in this board letter, it's not clear what methodology is used. I'm not saying to change it, but to consider later on, when you're doing, because your methodology may be different from Moyer to AB 617. I'm not sure about that. The second one that is a question, or it's a little bit confusing. When I look at the dollar amounts that you have, almost 200 million on the Moyer side, these are large dollar amounts, which is pretty good, and you're doing the year 26 pretty fast. What is not clear here, I'm sure every year when you do projects, there are return funds. There's no year that you can do a project that dollar to dollar is used up, because some projects are completed cheaper than the allocated dollar amounts, and some projects simply fall through. So then we go and reallocate those monies. The reason I'm saying that is because when I looked at the board letter from the previous one, it makes it a bit confusing. You said you had around like 200 million for AB 617 and Moyer, and you wanted to use that fast to meet your liquidation deadlines. And then here you have over 100 million in surplus, where you can simply like backup, where you don't need even have it as backup. You can just execute all the contracts because you have money from the previous board letter. So that part is confusing. I'm not clear how much return funds you have in addition to what the dollar amounts are here.
Yeah, so a couple things. So the 75% in overburdened communities is really the dollar amount. That's not project amounts, dollar amounts, 75%. And the emission reductions, the NOx emission reductions, the infrastructure projects, as you know, with the Moyer methodology, doesn't really count for the emission reductions. Well, it should at some point, but it doesn't with the methodology. So, you need the infrastructure with the zero emission truck.
No, I understand that. All I'm saying is, like you say, projects A to Z, 10 projects are in these areas. For each project, you do cost effectiveness calculation and you know how much the NOx reductions are. So just say these projects you have $30 million saying in EJ areas, and you are reducing 10 tons a day of NOx. That's very easy. You know the project, you know the dollar, both the dollar amount and the reduction amount. Doesn't matter what that project is.
Yeah, we'll make note for that for next time. The other thing on the 617 cap funds is a lot of those projects are occurring within the 617 communities nearby.
No, I'm talking about Moyer.
Yeah, I know, I'll just clarify for the cat lines.
Yeah.
And there was another question about asked, what it was.
Oh, the money that's not used up.
Oh, so with those funds, the problem is that changes daily, almost anymore. I mean, there's so many projects and it's hard to put that in the board letter right now. Because it would be out of date by the time it goes to the board. So that's the kind of consideration that we have a lot of contracts right now with lawyers.
That I know, but during, like last time you went to the board, it was say 2 years ago, for year 24, I'll say. During that time, there are projects that fall through, there are projects that get completed and you deobligate money. You don't have to be precise day by day, but by the time you submit your board letter, you should know from your accounting how much return funds are there. So you obligate them as fast as you can, you execute your contracts. I'm sure since then there will be more return funds, but you obligate them the following year.
Okay.
Yeah, well, the other thing that's also happened is there's been a lot of rules in place from CARB. So a lot of the projects we have with those backup plans, and also there's been lawyer guideline changes. So we can't fund, it's not as cost effective to fund some of those backup projects with previous lawyer board letters. So we'll look at that for next time is what the deobligated.
Okay.
I have a really the concept of overburdened communities, always seems to be along the west side of LA County and east, Coachella Valley. And I'm sure they are overburdened, but there are a number of overburdened areas. And the one I have to be concerned about, because I work for the mayor, is San Bernardino, which the entire county, whether you're upper middle class or working, they're all overburdened from ozone and also toxics. Because on the last Mate's 5, the Fontana station had the majority of the highest readings were in San Bernardino. It wasn't in West Long Beach, it was in San Bernardino. And San Bernardino didn't even get into this item. And it's their fault maybe, because they didn't submit anything. But there seems to be a little imbalance in regard to most of the basin versus those two areas that do get a lot of attention.
Marcella?
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you going to continue answering?
Yeah, no.
Go ahead.
Did you have anything?
Well, I just mentioned that there was awards made to San Bernardino,
Oh, was it?
County,
Yeah.
but we do, it's not as much as we like out in that area, but they do have to apply.
And I was also their fault because they're not,
They need to apply.
they don't have the active environmental communities around the port who are always, the loudest folks get the attention. So that brings up the public affairs folks. They should have some relationship with these 617 communities. I don't know how active it is in San Bernardino or elsewhere, so maybe they should be kind of.
They're very active.
Do something,
Yeah.
guys, to get
We've
their
presented
money.
several times, and we have a participant list of 16,000 recipients. We sent out the warning announcements to you, so it's been very active. The other thing is, San Bernardino is inland, it's downwind of a lot of the pollution sources, so they are more impacted by a lot of NOx emissions occurring on coastal areas and below.
But I did want to clarify is that the 8617 team, which is led by Sessa, there is a whole team that's dedicated to the 8617 community. So for San Bernardino, there's, constant outreach to San Bernardino, Muscoy. Yeah. And then also, what we did was because we have the 8617 cleaner program incentive funds, what we did was we looked at all the actions that are in the community emission reduction plans and saw how that could fit with any of the unfunded Moyer projects. And then, so those are the projects that it's like if it was unfunded, we're pushing it towards all the 617 communities to try to get them additional reductions. And yes, Fred, we can look at the reductions. The reductions will definitely be when we do the annual report for 617, but definitely hear you that the dollars and the emissions could be different when you look at the percentage.
Sure.
but we have paid particular attention to the EJ communities.
Yes, thank you. That has to do with my question as well. I wanted to know like how do you determine, because here it just says you're authorizing, you're redistributing the source of funds for awarded projects. So who determines how much of those funds go to which projects? And also on the agenda item, I know that there are some that are recognized by East LA, Boyle Heights, and then Coachella Valley. And I know some of them have the cities next to them, like Montebello and East LA. Can we make sure that we add the cities of where these projects are listed so that the public can see more easily and clearly where these projects are? Because we are also representing a lot of AB 617 communities over off of the 710 freeway. So we want to make sure that some of these funds are just redistributed over there as well.
Yeah, so the cities listed next to those projects, those are the infrastructure projects. And then a lot of the projects, even though they need to be domiciled, they spend the night, say, perhaps in the city, they impact several areas because these are mobile source projects. And in terms of the dollar amounts awarded, there's a very strict board of guidelines that we follow, and that determines the amount that gets incentivized for these project applicants. That's based on the equipment type, the engine type, project type, how much they're used. And so that's kind of a formula we have to use for each application.
It's good to know that a lot of the funds that are not used for those projects are being redistributed to those AB 617.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So item 7.
Any questions?
I think good.
Let's see. So item 7 is it's a technology demonstration project with the technology demonstration group. We're focusing a lot of our efforts, or some of our efforts, on infrastructure, on trying to plug in zero emission equipment. We're seeing a lot of issues with the electrical grid, trying to get trucks plugged in per se. So we're looking at other ways to plug in the zero emission equipment that may assist the grid, or also just provide off-grid solutions or resiliency if the grid goes down. And so this is a project with UCLA to support their light duty vehicle infrastructure, the battery electric equipment. And so grid GenCell is going to put in place this box container. It's a fuel cell with battery, and it's going to help power their light duty battery electric vehicles and support the grid. So they don't have to have as much power to the site. Questions there?
What is the source of the hydrogen for this project?
Well, so the hydrogen is going to be trucked in on a gaseous supply. Now, the color of the hydrogen, I'm not sure on this one, but we'll have to ask them.
How big is this going to be? Both physically and capacity, kilowatts.
So it's a 40-foot container, and then aside from that 40-foot container, there is a supply of gaseous hydrogen that gets trucked in and connected to it, and it's 260 kW of power.
Are there any other efforts to go after other universities to get involved in a program like this?
Oh, we work with all universities that want to work with us.
Sure. Right.
Well, local universities, we favor those. So we have a lot of projects, UCR, Cal State, LA, UC Irvine, UCLA actually we don't have as many projects with, so this is a good opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that item? Then we'll go to item 8. So item 8, we right now on our second hydrogen fueling station here, just down the way. So if you have a Mirai, you're very familiar with the station, I'm sure. And the issues with the existing station. So the existing station has been in there for about 10 years. It's owned and operated by Air Products. It's a compressed gas hydrogen station that gets delivered and then dispensed on site. Right now, the demand for that hydrogen is outstripping really the supply. So the first one is to follow the truck in, get the hydrogen, and the remaining vehicles don't get it. So we were approached by First Element, and they have a new station design that uses liquid hydrogen. So we're going to put that system in place. I think it's 1,600 kilograms per day of dispense. Right now, we have one dispensing nozzle for the hydrogen, so this new station is going to have 4 dispensing nozzles down there to accommodate the increased demand for this hydrogen. And I'll answer your questions there.
What's the capacity difference between the current one and the new one?
So the existing one's around 250, 300 kilograms. This one's going to be 1,600.
And how long do you think this will meet the demand until the demand catches up?
Hopefully there's other stations built. And we don't have to carry all this demand. Because ideally, we'd like to not provide this service because it, increases. We want the private sector to carry this. So I think that's it for my items there.
Thank you, Aaron. Any other questions for Aaron? All right. We're on page 6, item number 9. This is the RFP for the Green Space Program within AB 617 Southeast LA community. Sessa.
Hi, so thank you all for being here. We're very excited that we are at this stage with our Green Spaces program. Through participatory budget workshops held in about 2021, AB 617 Southeast LA, our SELA Community Steering Committee, prioritized 2.5 million for incentive funding for green spaces projects. We are now to the point in which we can issue a RFP for the amount of the 2.5 million to solicit green space project bids from contractors and to execute contracts to implement those green spaces project in the SELA community. We are looking at a liquidation deadline of June 30, 2025. So we are very excited that we are moving forward. There is also funding to reimburse the general fund for any administrative costs. And then also there is, I believe it is a transfer and appropriate up to 25,000 for the AB 134 fund into our DI community air, DI and community air program funding. Any questions?
So what kind of projects are they gonna do?
Green spaces projects.
Okay.
So it could be green belts, it could be, is it the volatile?
So they have to be low VOC
Low
trees,
VOC.
yeah. And is it low
That was a
ground?
new one on me.
Yeah,
Drought resistant plants. So we had an opportunity recently, our entire team, which is about 30 individuals, went out into the SELA community. There's just no green. There's just no green. And this is a community, as many of our communities are dealing with disproportionality around air pollution. This is something that was very much so driven by the community that they wanted to do this. We were also in San Bernardino yesterday, by the way, doing similar visits. I just want to tell you. It's not our fault there was an earthquake, but we did cause some noise. But it was very much powerful to be in those spaces with the community. And this is a lot of the community members are just adamant about wanting to have more green.
Was there a San Bernardino meeting yesterday? Or was that
No,
just?
no, our staff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no, our staff. No, you didn't miss anything. No.
Okay.
Our team goes out once a month into the different AB 617 communities to kind of reconnect with the community post COVID. And so just our team went live yesterday.
Are there any areas that are pocket park? I mean, how are people gonna enjoy? I don't understand if there are little areas that like parks that you're gonna be working on, or brown areas, or?
We're looking for any green spaces. They're based on really recommendations from the community members, parks, representatives. We're looking for any spaces at all because there really aren't that many. Many of them are already on kind of covering toxic areas and so forth. So they're just looking for any areas in which they can increase green, so they can do recreational kind of activities, that kind of thing.
Deborah?
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to thank you, Wayne, for providing the list that Mayor McCallum asked for of the low VOC trees in your weekly announcement, and encourage board assistants if you haven't seen that. It's great information to provide to the cities in the areas that you might be representing. So thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Deborah.
Go ahead.
So I have a question about this item. This item is to issue RFP, the 2.5 million. Is that for the planning of or for the building of the green spaces? Because I know 2.5 million is not enough to build Oh, sorry, that's a question.
No, it's for actually a contract to actually do it. I'm speaking out of turn, correct, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's to actually do it. So it's not the planning. We and our team have been planning for a great deal amount of time. So creating the research where there was none, working with CARB to get this plan approved. So this is actually implementation of it. And to answer your question about the community wants pocket parks. So these are things that definitely are community driven to be able to do that. And many different individual people could apply. It could be one contractor who could apply. It's 2.5 million for the entirety of the project. So.
Okay.
Are you working with the various cities too?
Yes, we are very much so. And then based on the recommendations that we got from the board members during the Stationary Source Committee, they also added a couple additional, I think California Conservatory and Santa Monica, a couple others that we've also made.
And the tree people, do you do it with the tree people? They're
Yes.
still around.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Very much so, yes.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
There's another part to my question. Yeah, because I work with tree people as well. And in the city of Linwood, we've planted 1,000 trees. So I know they've planted a lot of trees throughout the Sela region. But 2.5 million is still on enough. So I'm just wondering, because I mean, we just heard about 42.6 million going to develop publicly accessible advanced hydrogen refueling stations. And now we're only going to give this project for green space 2.5 million. So I'm just asking, is there plans to put more money into these types of projects? Because these are the types of projects that our communities are asking us to do. When there's been decades of doing nothing, and now we're only going to allocate 2.5 million to building green spaces. And again, we're off of the 710. All of the satellite communities are off of the 710. We're dealing with the ports congestions. We're dealing with the 105 freeway, the 405 freeway, the 6. We're all in between these cities. Plus the airport is there. So, and the railroads, of course. Let's not forget that. I'm just wondering, are there plans to pump more money into these types of projects?
So this was a part of our participatory budgeting process that the communities were engaged in back in 2021. And so I will tell you that we are adamant and in support, and we are working with other communities who are seeing similar feelings about it as well. And so we're seeing more and more people wanting to do more. So although there's 2.5 is to do a start, there is definitely the possibility to increase this in other ways as well. But this is the start because this really did start with the community. And then I will turn it over.
And sorry, is this funding going to be going to the RFP is going to be going to the developers and the cities, or are we?
It goes to everybody, yeah. And one of the elements is like the projects that are project ready. And so although the 2.5 might not sound like very much, it's like if a city or a county is already sort of in the midst of looking at something, they can use this to supplement what they were planning to do anyway, which we would like, because we want the project we want things that are really shovel ready for this. And it is part of the criteria. So if you know of projects and you know of entities, we have had situations where we have these RFPs and people don't respond. So word of mouth, anybody, it's like, that can, but it has to be in that Southeast LA area. So there's a jurisdiction, kind of a boundary.
Well, last point on this issue. Are you working with schools? Because you can get a lot of high school kids to go out there and plant the trees, and it teaches them to take personal responsibility, and it's also cheap labor. So
I do know that we have a very vast list of folks that we are sharing the information with, and if you could treat people. We can somehow get that communication as well. We can't work with private school just for some of the limitations involving CARB. That's not something that there's a limitation provided by CARB, but yes, the team is working very hard to include as many different groups as possible who have the interest.
I'd like to weigh in on this issue a little bit. So Marcelo, you asked, are we planning to put more money into parks and green space? And I would say it depends. This funding, as you know, is from AB 617. The budget situation that we're in. South Coast AQMD does not normally fund green spaces in its programs. We go after sources of NOx, we go after combustion, things like that. But as long as we have AB 617 funding, and as long as we continue to go through the community participatory budgeting process, and as long as those communities prioritize green space funding, and as long as CARB approves those funding, then I would say we're committed to doing that. But if you were to ask me, are we seeking active funds to do green spaces? No. We're looking at funds to reduce emissions from locomotives, from planes, from trucks, from ships, all of those other ones. That is the district's priority. Implementing AB 617 is also a district priority, but that funding is less certain, and especially so now. So I just want to be clear where we're trying to get funds, what our main focus for, and where we utilize those funds that really is geared toward those communities. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions on this item?
Just a quick question. These funds will be used for projects in public spaces or both private and public?
Public.
Public, okay, great, thanks.
Okay, moving on, we already covered item 10, moving on to item 11, approve funding allocations, was approved by MSRC. Aaron?
Yeah, just real brief, so MSRC, the work program plan has focused their attention on zero emission infrastructure. We currently have an RFP open for funding for zero emission infrastructure that closes early February. And what MSRC has done is there's 3 applicants that we likely will receive under that announcement. And they're opting to provide $27 million in co-funding for these applicants for zero emission infrastructure projects. So the second part of their meeting, they also are working with LA Metro to focus on getting infrastructure around the 17th corridor.
Okay, any questions for Aaron? All right, let's flip the page. Items 12 through 18. These are our information only, receive and file. Any questions on these items?
Mark, I just have my standard question. Is there anything on the number 16, any rules or control measures moving up or being pushed back that would be of note?
Yeah, hey, Mark, this is Mike. Yeah, so just going to be moving one rule, on Rule 1135, that's addressing nitrogen oxide emissions from electric generating facilities. Currently have it on the calendar for April, but we're still working with the stakeholder with regards to basically what that project description will look like. In addition, we recognize that we're going to have to do, CEQA, various other steps, of the process and what have you. So we're going to be moving that to August.
And is that the Catalina Island?
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, let's flip the page. We have items 19 through 25. These are report for committee and CARB. Any questions?
Question it's sort of a legal question on mobile source, and we're getting into the ports railroad thing. And you don't have to necessarily answer this now, but as we go down the road, the railroads are going to say, we're the railroads, you can't touch us. So what I'm wondering is, and don't necessarily have to answer this now, we got months to, but what arguments are the railroads going to make that you guys don't have authority to do this to us? And then what's your counter that, yes, we do because of that, yes, we can handle cargo handling equipment because it's not, whatever. You don't need to go with that depth now, but certainly that'll be the big question going forward on ports.
Well, I think our position is that we have authority under our indirect source authority under both the state and federal Clean Air Act, and we think that there's ways we can leverage that to develop a rule that will withstand legal scrutiny.
I just want to make a comment on that mobile source, the ISR rules, both for the ports and the railroads. The way I understood the presentation, that basically we're running with ISR, which my board member supports that. And the way I understand that rule basically mimics ARB's rule, which is statewide, and is making sure that the proportion of the reductions that is happening statewide, that proportion is benefiting our South Coast Air Basin. So that state rule is there, and we are going with something that is similar to that. We are just saying the reductions has to be here. I just don't understand why the ports and their labor and everyone is so adamantly against it. If anything, we are even also proposing to provide some flexibilities on how to achieve those reductions. So if anything, that should, I just don't understand that part, because I think our approach is correct.
Yeah, I think you have the gist of what we're trying to do conceptually, right? So yeah, I can't speak for the reactions of others. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on the board agenda before we move on to our next agenda item? All right. Do we have any public comment on item 1 of our agenda? I have a hand up for Rita Loof. Rita, go ahead. Go ahead, Rita.
She unmuted.
She's unmuted.
Good morning. Thank you. Rita Loof, Director of Environmental Affairs for RATIC International. I wanted to make a comment on page 4 of the February agenda, which is the Local Government Small Business Advisory Committee. And I just wanted this group to be aware of some of the issues that are going on in the committee. So I've been a committee member for over a decade. And for as long as I can remember, a report of the meeting has always been on the administrative agenda. But for the few months, there has been no report included in the committee's agenda. And I was told that it's because we have had no quorum in our committee, but yet there are other committees like the EJAC where even when there is no quorum, the minutes are still forwarded on to the administrative committee. So there's been a few inconsistencies that we're hoping will get worked out. Traditionally, the committee has had a very passive role of just listening to staff presentations. So I'm encouraged to see new members because I know our chairman, Mayor Rodriguez, who had served with distinction on this committee, had expressed a desire for local government committee to take a more active role. And we recently did that by reaching consensus on sending or asking the AQMD board to send a letter to CARB urging the inclusion of business groups in the AB 617 Community Steering Committee process, because currently business groups are not allowed to hold seats on those committees. And at the last meeting, staff took a position that the effort was untimely because CARB had already approved their blueprint. But the effort would have been timely if staff had simply forwarded our request to the administrative committee, and this issue has been going on for months. But CARB's adoption of the blueprint is irrelevant for purposes of ensuring that the business community has equal access to the AB 617 process. So I wanted to make this group aware. And if we want to have more business engagement, please support the local government small business assistance committee. Thank you.
I just want to weigh in. So first off, businesses are a part of the community steering committee meetings. And CARB, when they developed the program, was very adamant that business be part of a CSC. CARB was equally clear that the CSC had to have a majority of local residents of the community. The issue became one of which businesses would be representative. And if they were actual businesses within that community, they could be on the community steering committee. Where there was concern where there were national organizations or large organizations that were not part of a community, and by that I mean residing within that community designation, being part of or trying to become a member of a CSC. And that was not condoned nor allowed. So just to be clear, businesses can be a part of the CSC. And that is something that we actually advocated for. With regards to the other items, thank you, Rita, for raising those points. We'll certainly be looking at those, especially with regards to the consistency of the reporting.
Okay. Any other public comment on item number 1 of our agenda, our board agenda? Not seeing any hands raised. We will move on to item number 2 of our agenda. Any other business?
I have a question.
Oh, Deborah has her hand raised.
Hi, I just have 2 quick items. The first one is a question for staff as I've been working with my boss on his scheduling moving forward. Is there any plan for a board retreat in the spring? And if so, do we have kind of a ballpark of dates so we can start to block those out?
Yes. Susan?
Yeah, so it's May is what we're looking at. We're still finalizing the contract, so but we're looking at the second week in May, so the May 9th and 10th for the board retreat.
I think it's only another.
No, it'll be at a different, yeah. The prices have all gone up, so it's still nice, but it's, not as nice as, some of the other places, but so we really wanted to be fiscally responsible. So, yeah.
That's a shame.
So-
Motel 6 breakfast room.
Oh, okay.
And then Deborah, you had another question?
Yes, thank you. Actually, it's just a quick statement because today marks a special milestone for one of our governing board assistants, and their partner might have sent something to me to ask for everybody to join me in wishing our ever smiling and prolific inquisitor, Mark Taylor.
Where did you find the picture?
I'm gonna take it out on her later.
Surprises.
Oh my gosh. Yes, that was drawn because there was no photography back then.
Happy birthday, Mark.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday, Mark.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Fantastic. All right, Ron, you had a question?
317.1. I think we need to be briefed at some point. I think that's gonna be a really controversial rule coming down. Would you agree with that?
I agree that there'll be fees that we have to impose that as a result of the Clean Air Act that we have no discretion over.
Right.
Was that the 185 fees?
Mhm.
But I'm wondering what is the number of facilities that we're looking at being impacted by this? Is this, what I'm guessing it's around 200 right off of the baseline, but I think the rule is 10 tons, potential 10 tons, which the 200 I'm talking about are the 200 facilities we mentioned in the last AQMD, which were 10-ton folks. So how many facilities do you think will be impacted by this?
Well, we will be coming back to committee and of course board as we go through the rule development process. So we will be having subsequent briefings on
But
this.
is it true that it's the potential for 10 tons?
It's those that are considered major stationary sources.
Which
Probably
is
around 320.
320?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot that kind of goes into the formula.
Right,
Okay, so I just
right.
wanna.
And here's my last question. Where does that money, how does that impact our programs here? Are we gonna be able to retain those monies? Or is it going up? When I look at that little presentation, it says it either goes to EPA or CARB. So
Well, if we collect the money, we can use the money and it's fairly, I think, free ranging of what we can spend that money on. If we don't collect the money, it goes to EPA.
Oh, I got you. Thanks, sir.
Okay, great. Any other business to raise?
Oh, just, the ports ISR working group is at 1:00. So.
Yep.
Overtime.
All right. Any public comment on item number 2? Not seeing any Okay, John, item number 3, general public comments. Rita, go ahead. Okay, Rita, you should be able to speak now.
Yes, yes, I am. Thank you so much. Yes, I wanted to speak on an item that's not on the agenda as of yet, but I believe will be coming up sometime soon, which is the budget. Some of you may recall that last year, during the Rule 219 process, Supervisor Hagman suggested setting aside funds to offset fees for businesses who invest in clean technology. And we think that's a great idea, to the extent that the district can provide incentives for stationary sources who are going above and beyond what the district rules require. Between the high VOC and the low VOC, and that we not be charged the same amount as a high VOC material. If the district must absolutely issue a permit, which is the position that the staff has taken, our position is that if you emit nothing, and if you're actually giving the district benefits like greenhouse gas reductions, that those businesses should be encouraged and not discouraged, and not have to be made to wait in line for a permit. But if we absolutely must get a permit, then at least provide them a discount. We think $7,300 for a zero emission light is really unreasonable. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I did keep that piece of paper that you had when we were working on, I think it was either 219, and so I did pass it to the rule team because they're going to be amending Reg 3 in May, so they're aware of the issue.
Okay, thank you, Rita, for that comment. I'm not seeing any other hands for public comments. So at this time, I think we can move to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you again for the birthday wishes.
Yeah.
Our next one, Sarah, is
I added you on the calendar, but.
February 22nd, 2024 at 11 a.m. Bye, everyone.
Bye, Wayne.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.
Okay, it was pretty short.
I think that I should know. Anything important.
Oh, Bill.
Go ahead.
You know,
Okay.
you've been.
I think Chloe had updates for us saying
At
that
1 o'clock, but
on the refinement. Monitoring.
Bill did. Got a lot of attention.
Kind of stuff there right now. They're working with